In this segment, I'm going to talk all about the RSR token. So what is RSR? It stands for Reserve Rights. The purpose of RSR is twofold. One is governance, and the other is over-collateralization. If you want to learn more about those, you can look at the segment that's about the reserve protocol at a high level, and it talks about both of them. There's an incentive to do those things, and that's basically the income you can earn from the R tokens that you stake on. So if you stake your RSR in any given R token, you get to participate in its over-collateralization and probably its governance, and you earn a slice of its income by doing that. That means that, so you can think about where does the RSR token get its value from? It gets it from that income earning opportunity, plus what you do with that opportunity. If you never take that income earning opportunity, then it wouldn't really have any direct value to you, and you couldn't earn any money from it. But if you look at the different R tokens that exist and you decide, okay, these are the ones that I want to stake on this week or this month or this year, and you actually go and stake and put your RSR at risk, then you can earn income by doing that. But so now let's break that apart. We have the income earning opportunity and what you choose to do with that opportunity. Where does that opportunity come from? What determines whether you have that income earning opportunity? Well, it's a bunch of different things, but at a high level, I would say it's a set of broad market forces because there's the question of demand. Is there demand for R tokens? And that's kind of just a question of, are there R tokens out there that people want? So we can divide that further and think about, well, which R tokens get deployed? And that depends on who chooses to deploy R tokens. The core team that created the reserve protocol doesn't deploy R tokens ourselves, and so that's up to the market. People may choose to deploy R tokens or not. And then once those R tokens are deployed, then there's just a question of, will people want them? And like any product that's put out there into the world, nobody knows if the product is wanted until it's offered to people. Maybe some of them get really big, maybe none of them get really big. That's kind of just a question of market demand. And so then, that income earning opportunity does depend on how big R tokens get. In particular, how big R tokens get that are actually providing a lot of revenue to stakers. There could be a really big R token that chooses to provide little or no revenue to stakers for whatever reason, and that wouldn't add to the income earning opportunity. One thing I just want to note is that I think some people might have the impression that some of the people on the reserve core team have special connections that would allow us to determine the course of R tokens and sort of force it to be the outcome that R tokens get really big and that income earning opportunity exists and gets big. That's not true. I sort of wish that were true. I wish there was something that could be controlled. I want reserve to succeed, but it's not the case. There aren't any sort of special connections or backroom deals that will guarantee that R tokens get big. It really is a question of what happens in the ecosystem and that broad question of demand. If that overall ecosystem gets big, that will be kind of like Bitcoin. There will be no one team that has caused that. And if you look at Bitcoin, there's all sorts of different things, all the infrastructure that's been built, and just the fact that there was a desire in society. The meme of Bitcoin caught on, and people wanted it as a financial asset. And if that ends up being true with R tokens, then there could be a similar outcome. But we don't know if that will be the case or not. Part of what that means is that if people outside of the core team, the reserve core team, don't build this overall ecosystem, I honestly think that reserve will absolutely fail. For one thing, the core team doesn't create R tokens, but it's also just the case that we can only do so much to facilitate R token usage. If you look at, Bitcoin as a comparison, all of the infrastructure that exists to use it all around the world was built by so many different companies and so many different people with different ideas about what services people want and what's necessary to use it and so on. And I think a similar thing applies here, where it's not the case that we have the power to create what's necessary for this phenomenon to get really, really big. And so if it does happen, I think it will be because there's enough market demand for the phenomenon in general that it sucks in a lot of entrepreneurial efforts from many teams all around the world. But I think if enough independent actors do participate, and if there is enough market demand for R tokens, it could become a really big thing, and that income earning opportunity could be significant. But again, obviously, don't know. And then there's the second piece of the RSR staker's choice. So again, you choose where to stake, and you choose which risk and reward you want to seek, depending on which R tokens you choose to stake on. RSR holders already are earning very different amounts. Some out there are not staking at all. Some have staked on EUSD and probably lost money on that because of the EUSD depeg. Some may be staking on other R tokens. Like everyone sort of chooses their own adventure. And, you know, like I said before, it's important to look at R tokens and think about them critically. Think about which one has an amount of revenue that goes to stakers that's interesting, that's not too offset by whatever risk you perceive you might be taking by staking. Now, I want to talk about the subject of RSR speculation, because you might think like, well, can I just buy RSR and hope for it to go to the moon? First off, a couple caveats. As of this video, you still can't buy RSR on any US exchange. And if you are in the US, I don't condone you buying RSR at this point. I might say something different in the future, but that's where we're at. But for folks who are outside of the US, you know, it's crypto. People buy coins and hope for them to moon. I am fully aware that people do this with RSR, sometimes without even learning what it does, which I don't like, but I know that that happens. I suspect that this is similar to other crypto projects, but you know, it's led to the core team having a somewhat tortured relationship to the RSR speculators, because, you know, prices go up, you know, and then prices go down with the crypto market cycle. Many bought at a lot higher than the current price. And completely naturally, they want the price to go back up. Like, who would not want that? I would certainly want that if I were them. You know, everybody knows that when more people are buying a token than selling it, that's what causes the price to go up. People understand the sort of fundamental market dynamics. And so those RSR holders tend to want us to market RSR as an investment to, you know, people in the public to get others to buy, because they know that if a lot of others buy, that could drive the price back up. You know, essentially they want us to hype RSR, you know, for the sake of the price going up, so that they can recoup the money that they put into it. And again, I understand that desire. The thing is, if you really zoom out and think about it, that wouldn't really solve the problem. That might solve the problem for them, but it doesn't solve the problem globally. Because, you know, price might go up if we were to participate in that kind of hype, but then probably it would go back down again, right? If the reason for people buying was hype-based, then probably some greater demand wouldn't be sustained anyway. And there would just be a new set of people who had bought the top. And so, you know, the overall ecosystem would be in the same position of people having bought the token for more than it's worth at that time, and having the same issue. That's one reason why we don't participate in that kind of activity. When we don't do this kind of thing, RSR holders sometimes get really upset with us. And again, I sort of understand why. And I know that it is common for some types of crypto projects and some parts of the ecosystem to participate in that. And so there's kind of an expectation that we'll behave similarly to others, but we don't. And that, you know, that's not just us. There are other crypto projects that take a similar approach to the way that we do to RSR. We started trying to warn people that we don't play this game before they buy, so that people sort of see a sign on the door being like, all right, if you're going to participate here, if you're going to buy RSR with that motive, with that intent, don't expect the same behavior from this team as you might have seen from other teams. That's part of why I'm saying this on this video. And we've tried to say it with tweets and in other places, but you know, we don't always get to reach everyone before they make that decision. It's also worth mentioning that hyping the project in the way that many holders have wanted us to do is like exactly what regulators don't want us to do. And you know, I think the clearest example of this is if you look at the court case, or the two court cases that the SEC recently filed against Binance and Coinbase. They each list dozens of crypto assets, or maybe not dozens, but like, you know, a dozen and a half crypto assets, and go through and talk about all the things that they think that those token projects did wrong. And if you look at the list of actions that those token projects took, it's basically the exact same set of things that some RSR holders, you know, sort of bother us about on Twitter, trying to convince us to do. So there's this like diametric, you know, you sort of can't win. You can't do what RSR holders want, or what token holders want of any type really, and also do what regulators want. And this is something that you sort of get stuck in between those two desires with any token project. But from our perspective, it's like, obviously following laws is very important, and thinking about morality, even above and beyond law, in the way that I just described, you know, where if we were to hype the project, that might help person A, but it might hurt person B. And so both legal and moral reasoning lead us to the conclusion of behaving the way that we do.